9% of Americans have absolutely no or very little trust in the corporate media. 31% of Americans are retarded, as you cited not long ago. What do you think happens moving forward with
I wouldn't use the retarded word on it. This is Dave Smith and Chris Williamson. They get together. Brilliant minds getting together. I think they're both very, very good in their own right. We're going to get into this. When you talk about the media, corporate media, Dave Smith has been breaking it down, going back all the way until the COVID-19, the pandemic. That's when I found out about comic Dave Smith and part of the problem. Robbie the Fire Bernstein, big supporters of theirs. They were great during the whole pandemic, putting their channel at risk to talk about the stats, to get into the details, to get into the words that you can't say. They navigated those waters and they are out on the other end. And now they are ready to tell us about the corporate media leading into Trump's inauguration. Chris Williams here is going to talk about some of the big stories. And I don't think the 30% are all really slow or stupid. Chris Williamson, I think that what we're seeing here is 30% or maybe 15%, 16% of people are scared. Let's get back to the clip. Chris Williamson, comic Dave Smith, let's go.
Sort of trust in media. Are the media going to learn anything from this? Do you think that they're going to pivot or change?
Well, I mean, I don't think so. And I don't see how they can. And I'm not like the best at predicting the future. I've gotten things wrong in that regard. But even just looking at like the postmortems over the last few weeks, none of them, even the ones like there's kind of a split within the corporate media between the real loons who are like, no, it was sexism and racism. And that's all that we're going to say about this, you know? And then there's like the ones who are, I guess, only have 1 foot off the cliff, who are like, well, maybe, you know, there are certain things we could have done better. Maybe the transing the kids thing was a little bit too far or something like that. But even with those guys, that just none of them. And in some ways, it's just because they're so strongly incentivized not to admit this even to themselves, but none of them can really have an honest postmortem. None of them can really go like, oh, I guess what happened is that we just consistently lie through our teeth and we've gotten every single issue wrong, every single one of them on the side of power. Like there's not one of all of the issues, you know, if you were to just say in the 21st century, what has the corporate media gotten completely wrong? And you could list off like these humongous that, you know, like from the war in Iraq to the financial recession, you know, COVID and, you know, Russiagate and all this stuff. Isn't it convenient that they always get it wrong on the side of the CIA? It's so bizarre, you know, and none of them can admit that. And none of them can admit that, oh, we were lying when we said this is a great economy. Actually, we've totally gutted this economy and rigged it against any honest working class person. And I mean, like, you know, it's like that was one of the major ones that was just unbelievable to watch them pretend this is a really great economy. And when it's terrible for working people. It's one of the worst economies, the worst, I think, in my lifetime. And so, again, it's just, you look at them, okay, they have no ability to actually grapple with what got them here and why they've lost all their credibility. And then on top of that, you know, and this was a thing that I think a lot of people got wrong, because I even saw a lot of people who I kind of agree with and respect saying that Kamala Harris made a huge mistake by not going on Joe Rogan's podcast when she was invited on. But I think you've got it all wrong if you're looking at it like that. That was a wise move on Kamala Harris's part. There's no way that would have gone good for her. There's no way it wouldn't have been a disaster.
I'm going to stop there because that's the first thing that I really honestly disagree with comic Dave Smith and what he said there in the epic rant. He's really good at the rants. If you've seen him on Tim Pool, I think it's 2 or 3 times now. 2 times were really excellent for sure. And then every time he's on Rogan, it's probably been 3, 4, 5 times now at this point. Rogan just tees it up. It's almost like, remember Kobe threw that alley-oop to Shaq? Unbelievable. Here's another good rant by him. I'm just going to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here. This is no diss to Chris Williamson and Modern Wisdom. Great show. great mind, comic Dave Smith, breaking it down. But I'm looking at X right now, and I'm recording this as of January 2nd, and I'm seeing censorship. And I'm seeing people on the right, conservatives, I don't know how to define that term, but I think generally speaking for this conversation, you know what I mean. I don't like using terms that aren't defined, but you know what I mean. Comic Dave Smith would be considered on the right, basically those types. Comic Dave Smith, the MAGA, all that, even the corporate right. They're all supporting, even Comic Dave Smith wasn't, he did a show today on January 2nd where he didn't defend them as strongly as I thought. Elon Musk has banned people off of X. And he promised free speech. I'm going to let Dave Smith go back. We'll get into that later. Chris Williamson, Comic Dave Smith. Let me tell you this. I'll end with that conversation. So my challenge here is Elon Musk banned people off the platform. He promised free speech. Obviously, he's not. Pretty much, I don't know how you could disagree. Even if you want the people banned, pretty much you have to agree this isn't free speech. And so you're not seeing people trust the corporate media, but the biggest alt media is X. And people on X are not as based as you might think either. Kamala Harris, let's get back to Dave Smith here. I disagree on this, but that's not the point.
Faster for her because Kamala Harris is not built to be able to.
Just to be clear, what I disagree with is Kamala Harris would have done bad on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan would not have annihilated her, and it would have been actually good for her to do that. But I'll get back to it.
Speak openly and unguarded for 3 hours. Her whole thing is she's got to say talking points because otherwise you might find out that she has nothing. She's not interested in any policy. She doesn't have a deep thought on a single issue. And so there's a new game in town now. And it's an amazing precedent that's been set over this last election where now you have to, if you want to be president of the United States, you have to go and sit for an unedited 3-hour-long in-depth conversation. And Trump had to do a bunch of them. And it's just simply the case that what the corporate media does, what the progressive establishment Democrats do, isn't built for that. Like it just can't be done. There is nobody. Let's say if you're on the side of transing the kids or whatever, you don't do well in a long form conversation. You rely on shutting down your opponent by calling them a bigot and then having censorship and having the power and having the control. You can't, because there's just no defending it. It's not like there's not one single person out there who's a good defender of it. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, you may not have noticed this. The other day was Transgender Day of Remembrance, not to be confused with Trans Day of Visibility, which is in March, or Trans Day of Action, which is in June. Last week was the last day of Transgender Awareness Week. Transparent Day was earlier this month as well. California legislature has declared August to be Trans History Month. Pronouns Day is in October. Also in October is Gender Fluid Visibility Week. Non-Binary People's Day and Non-Binary Awareness Week, both in July. October, designated as LGBTQ History Month, which was initially Lesbian and Gay History Month. And of course, LGBTQ Pride Month, formerly Gay and Lesbian Pride Month, is in June. So I assume that you've been celebrating appropriately.
Yes, I don't eat until sundown on all of those days. whatever it is you're supposed to do. I can't believe you have all those memorized, Chris. Jeez.
Look, they're on my calendar. I'm being a good contributing member of society. But yeah, this idea of sort of the media landscape and it's changing. It really did feel like there was a couple of breakthrough moments when independent media went mainstream. So the CNN horse dewormer thing with Joe, the 1-2 punch of the N-word video as well shortly after that, and then a lot of the stuff around COVID, lab leak hypothesis, vaccine skepticism, stuff like that. And then it kind of, it came back down a little bit. I think that sort of independent crossing over into the mainstream. We saw Mr. Huberman have his little eruption earlier this year. And then the election has just thrust it so much, I think, into the public zeitgeist, because so many people are invested in the outcome of the election. So many clicks and so many eyeballs are bothered by it, and it just garners all of that attention. So yeah, it really wouldn't surprise me if within the next 4 years, we get to the stage where there's more than 50% of the population, maybe not more than 50, because I often overestimate how not normal the normies are, and I fail flat on my face. A significant portion of people say, we don't want MSNBC or CNN to host the presidential debate. We want it to happen on a piece of independent media. We want fucking Rogan and Glenn to do it, or Douglas Murray and fucking Cenk Uygur. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we want that. And I feel like we're on a trajectory where that doesn't.
I just want to take a little break. If you want to support your boy, I'm just a dude in the basement. All you have to do is let me know what your thoughts are. I love the comments. They energize me. I appreciate it. This is After Show Carnage. Let's get back to it.
Seem as ridiculous as it might have done only 5 years ago.
Yeah, well, in a way, what seems ridiculous now would be to have it on one of the networks. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And I know so many, like, I was going to say blue check journalists, but that's not a thing anymore. But if you remember back in the day on old Twitter, that used to be a thing when it was the journalist with the blue check. And that's how you knew they were like an official journalist. But I remember all of them for years just like deriding Twitter and podcasts, and it'd be like, Twitter isn't real life, and the podcast bros are upset. Does that even really matter? And I remember always looking at this and being like, guys, it's as much real life as the New York Times is real life. Why isn't it any? It's a show. What we're doing right now is a show. There's two people, there's cameras, there's a microphone. Who cares whether it's on the internet or it's on FX or something like that? It's like what matters is how many people are watching. And there's just way more. There's just no, listen, if Elon Musk and Joe Rogan decided they wanted to host the next presidential debates, we all know that would get not more views than if Jake Tapper were to host it, but like by orders of magnitude more viewers on it. So why? It's just the more you look at it on paper, you're just kind of like, oh yeah, it would make no sense to go in that direction and all the sense in the world to go in this direction. And all things being equal, that's probably what you're going to get.
Just to try and play a bit of devil's advocate for sort of the other direction, is there, because for all that I love and I'm a part, and
as you can tell, before Chris Williamson keeps on going, this is modern wisdom for sure with Comic Dave Smith. I'm going to wrap up here in just a little bit, take this last little piece. You don't want to miss this end rant. I'm going to take it a hard right turn away from, because we've heard, if you listen to this stuff, we've heard this kind of stuff before. They're saying it in very eloquent ways, but I actually don't have much to add to what they're saying there, except taking it to a area that they're not expertise in. Neither one of them are. I'm talking about maybe the far right, young Nick, and that. So stay tuned for that.
Will happily contribute to the degeneracy of the independent media space. There is a bit of me that thinks, well, I never went through formal media training. I'm not held to any particular standards, fairness, unbiasedness, all the rest of the stuff. Even if the media has totally disregarded those, etc., etc., etc. Is there a place, or is there a way, a case to be made of how we could salvage that other side of the fence, the more sort of corporate legacy media thing? Because again, I would benefit massively if everyone just fucking discarded them and came over to our side. But there is a bit of me that thinks, well, they've split tested a lot of how media works for a long time. They have the money behind them. It just seems like they're pointing in the wrong direction. And if we could just adjust the direction a bit, maybe we could have two really fantastic worlds that presented the public with information.
I'm not against that in theory, but I do think that institutions in general, there's a line you can cross of being so corrupt and so evil that you essentially lose the right to exist. You lose your legitimacy. And so I think, you know, if in 1990 someone was arguing that, you know, we just need to point the Soviet Union in the right direction, and then, you know what I mean? 'Cause it's important.
Okay, let's go back. I want to take this back. That was a great conversation there. I want to take this back to the point that was made in the beginning and throughout here on corporate media. And I want to expand on the concerns. A lot of people think we're good now. The corporate media is dying. Where's everybody going? There's only one place to, as far as politics go, to go. There's only one. Nobody's going to Facebook for politics. Nobody's going to Instagram for, there's discussions there, but that's not where you go to for news and politics. Elon Musk has made X a dominant platform, whether inorganically or not advertisers decide to advertise or not. That's not an organic thing. The reason why they wouldn't is to just be able to control Elon. If you want to go where the eyes are, you're going to X to talk politics. Probably even over YouTube at this point. And YouTube, that's what I think YouTube's going to change their, I have no insight. I'm just guessing. I think they have to change their policies. Otherwise, you're going to see a flood of people leaving. So you might think it's okay. Look what happened. Donald Trump, Elon Musk. I was looking at stuff earlier today and I saw that that's not okay. We're not in a better place. Just because the corporate, I was wrong in previous, this was on a previous channel before the election. I said that corporate media is still the powerful one because the last impression I had in mind was the midterms where the Donald Trump wasn't on the ballot. I didn't know that was a bigger factor than I probably thought. But we didn't see a red wave. We didn't see a rebuke of the pandemic regime. We didn't see a rebuke of the corporate media in the midterm. Midterm elections are way different than general elections, of course. It's almost like the difference is so big, it's almost like a Super Bowl where all your normies vote, all your normies get involved, even if they don't know what the hell's going on. They go to the Super Bowl, they go to vote in the general, especially with Donald Trump on the ballot, or who's watching the third preseason game played in Canton, Ohio. That's only the diehard sports fans. That's more of the midterm. So your results are much different. But I looked at that and I said, no, the corporate media is still more powerful. The views that Tucker Carlson has of 70 million or whatever on a Twitter post, they don't equal 1 million on Fox News in prime time. I was wrong. The Twitter views do equal more. So you might ask, well, why aren't we better? If that's better, it's not better. We're finding that out now. And I've been on this. Elon Musk has been a disaster. He's been an unmitigated disaster. He's worse than corporate media. He's worse than corporate media. Jake Trapper never tried to silence me before. You can say what you want about any one of these people on corporate media, Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid. They have never created a tier of free speech. Elon Musk would call it free speech, meaning you go to Twitter and you sign up and you can speak. Well, you can speak, but you don't have a power boost. You have to pay for that. Remember, AOC said you have to pay $7 for free speech, and all the right people were like, why is she complaining? And I was like, AOC is actually right. So you pay it's more than $7 now, but you pay your whatever you're paying, and you get a little bit of boost. So somebody who pays more money for me gets more reach than me. That's interesting. So then there's other tiers. There's like 3 different tiers, basically. You have your regular blue check, you've got your government, and then you've got your affiliation group where you get a bunch of people together. You can pool your money together, pay $2,000 a month, and now you've got the super boost. Elon Musk turned free speech into Call of Duty. I've never seen Joe Scarborough do that. Mika Brzezinski has never done that. No one's ever done that before. With that amassed power and through Tesla and government contracts, he amassed all this money and he puts $250 million towards Donald Trump getting elected. That's probably about 2.6 when you put it all together, 2.6 times more than Miriam Adelson did, who is Mama Dreidel for Donald Trump. Elon Musk has fascistic power that we've never seen before. We've never seen Comcast be able to do, promote, use the community notes as a weapon. They say that it's a separate group, whatever. Using that as a weapon, that you have tiered levels of speech now. You have freedom of speech, but not reach. The dumbest thing I've ever heard. The founding fathers are literally rolling over in their graves hearing that. You tell me. That's not even the beginning of the problems I have with X and Elon Musk. So corporate media's gone away, but we just got a new corporate media anyway.
The next clip is ready below. Welcome to After Show Carnage.